with that look in her eye. My hunger gets me so hard that I'm ready to cry. My sweet tooth aching as I pass her pristine hourglass full of sugar called the Calorie Queen. She's got a wide selection, carries every flavor. Yo, we could do this now, but we could also do it later. She takes one last bite, looks at the crumbs on her chest, and with the wing she asks if I want the rest. Eating like it's copulating, no one's gonna stop her. She's a crazy lollipop, a latent hungry kitty monster. If you're Charles and homie, getting like us, everybody wants a little piece of that candy ass. She's eating like it's copulating, no one's gonna stop her. She's a crazy lollipop, a latent hungry kitty monster. If you're Charles and homie, getting like us, everybody wants a little piece of that candy ass. She's got the whole package in the front, mad sackage, got that shipment in the back, and I can't wait to unpack it. Need a snack, gonna grab one off the rack. She's always fully stacked, this honey ain't one to slack. The other girls say, oh my gosh, she really loves that Fugazi, man. Fuck these basic bitches, they can't handle the Dagashi. All choking, getting sick off sugar stick that thick. But the candy queen, she takes it down with the lick of her lips. Don't be lying, guys, she's got you mesmerized from looking in her eyes, the way you look at her thighs. Dara's hot and she likes candy, that's really all I'm trying to communicate here. Eating like it's copulating, no one's gonna stop her. She's a crazy lollipop, a latent hungry kitty monster. If you're Charles and homie, getting like us, everybody wants a little piece of that candy ass. She's eating like it's copulating, no one's gonna stop her. She's a crazy lollipop, a latent hungry kitty monster. If you're Charles and homie, getting like us, everybody wants a little piece of that candy ass. Calorie power will purpose, and when she swerves on by, all your wife is getting nervous. Hiding my heart within a secret compartment, stand the number of fingers you want to stick inside his armpits. Want some comfort food, or what you be needing? She got the milk duds, fine vines, itching for breathing. Naturally sweet, not a drop of synthetic. Dig into the spread and eat until I'm diabetic. She's copacetic, always chilling, never lazy, just ecstatic, energetic with a little bit of crazy. She works it up, and though she doesn't keep track, whatever, everything left over goes up top and in the back. And when you want to pop the question, don't be bringing a rock. Get down on your knees, son, and show her that ring pop. She's sucking on it and she ain't gonna stop. You know you gave her cherry flavor, now that cherry's getting popped. Eating like it's copulating, no one's gonna stop her. She's a crazy lollipop, a latent hungry kitty monster. If you're Charles and homie, getting like us, everybody wants a little piece of that candy ass. She's eating like it's copulating, no one's gonna stop her. She's a crazy lollipop, a latent hungry kitty monster. If you're Charles and homie, getting like us, everybody wants a little piece of that candy ass. So the song was written by my dick. So if it sucks, you know, don't be too hard on him. Don't ride him too much. Yeah, starving, give me something for my blood sugar drop. Man, the candy shop's closed and my heart's gonna stop. My stomach's going numb, it's got me weak in the knees. I need to snack up to get back up, but I'm easy to please. And then she struts on by with that look in her eye. My hunger gets me so hard that I'm ready to cry. My sweet tooth aching as I pass her pristine hourglass full of sugar called the Calorie Queen. She's got a wide selection, carries every flavor. Yo, we could do this now, but we could also do it later. She takes one last bite, looks at the crumbs on her chest, and with the wing she asks if I want the rest. Eating like it's copulating, no one's gonna stop her. She's a crazy lollipop, a latent hungry kitty monster.
Okay, hi there everybody. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, please post in the chat. Let me know things are okay. I'm using a webcam mic, so I'm not sure of the quality. If the quality is really bad, we can I can switch to a different mic and give that a try. But if you all could just let me know how things are, I would really appreciate it. All of this is a very new experience for me, to do this real life streaming thing. You'll get to see all of the mess on my desk. You'll get to see gasp. Your streamer has hands. Look, hands. I have hands. But yeah, I made it to day 7, and we're going to do something really interesting today. We're going to try and do some real on-screen and on-stream leather work, so you can see what I do the rest of my time. What I've done so far, what I've done to prep for this is I have cut out the pieces for a pattern, because my cut area is in a different room, and I'm not going to string my camera stuff all the way into a different room in order to show you the entire process. But we do have all, other than that, I've basically done nothing else on this project. So today you're going to see me doing a lot of hole punching, some stitching, some riveting, and making some adjustments as needed as things sort of, happen and go wrong or go right. I'm going to... Hi there, Raven! Hello, Raven. Thank you for the raid. Thank you for being here for this day 7 of my 7 days of stream. I'm going to... Yeah, as I was explaining, I'm going to be doing as much of this project as I can during the stream today. If we're lucky, we'll get through all of it. If we're not, and if we even somehow manage to get done early by some chance, I will also maybe show you some of the other leather things I've made in the past. And some of the other things I do make. But as I was saying, I have basically cut out my pattern. I've done nothing else to the leather. So you're all going to watch as I go along with everything we do. I am going to also... You're right, back going to take off my headset. Yep. I will explain all of the tools I'm going to use. I will explain all of the... As I go, I'll sort of explain why I do things. And basically, I'll just try to keep up with chat and answer any questions you might have. Or answer, all of the, and just try to make things a little bit interesting. I have some music for the background, so it's not going to be just me talking. I think I've managed to figure out how Twitch handle my copyright music so that it doesn't get on my VOD, so I can do my music along with... so you guys will hear some music. I probably won't, and that's okay. Because we just want to make sure that you all can see what's going on and hear what's going on, and you all have a good time. And you are going to keep me company while I do all this work. So for an ADHD person like me, having you all here is a little bit like having someone body double you. You're finishing a sock. Very cool, Dragon's Crochet. So that has been the secret. What am I making? Do we have any guesses? Does anyone in chat have any guesses from what they can see on my table here today? Any guesses at all for what you can see on the table? Yep, Beth's got part of it. It's a mask. It is definitely a mask. Any guesses on what kind of mask I'm going to be making? Okay, well, I'll spoil the secret. We are going to today be making a pup mask. That's right, we're going to be making a puppy hood or mask that is quite often used by people in the leather community and those who enjoy being pups. Oh. So I'm not sure if that's something if that's not necessarily something you're horribly interested in. You don't have to stick around. I understand entirely. But that's what I'm going to be making today. If people like this, I wanted to do something kind of visually interesting today. I will, to be honest, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of leather work that is frightfully boring. I make all sorts of neck pieces and collars and other things and bags and all these other things that are honestly just kind of they're kind of there, but they're not hugely visually interesting to see. So I wanted to do something that might be a little more visually pleasing today, and give you all sort of an example, so you can all see how that kind of looks. So let us get started. Again, if you have any problems with the audio, if there's any issues, please let me know. I'm going to start some music real quick, and I'm going to keep it low. So please let me know if that's playing. Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's... I'm trying to pull the application music. I'm trying to pull the music for you all. Thank you for following, Crochet. I really appreciate that. Okay, so instead, since it doesn't look like the application itself is going to be pulled, I'm just going to pull my desktop audio into the stream. Turn that down, turn that way down, and hopefully send it to the VOD channel so it won't get saved. Is the music playing then? Is it playing quietly? I hope so. No, you can't hear any? Okay. How about now? Turning the volume up on the... Okay. Is it too loud? Is it okay? Is it a little too quiet? Is it a little too loud? Just go ahead and let me know. I want to keep it balanced so that you can hear me well, but also so that you have some good background music. Lower it a little bit? Okay, we'll lower it just a little bit. How's that? How's that then? All right, great. All right, great. So we can get started now. I'm showing all of these pieces here because these are the main pieces we're going to be working on for this pup hood. But we only need one piece right now because we need to start with some of the basic things. When I cut these out, I used a straight blade knife, just a utility knife, just a nice little utility knife that I keep around, and that always leaves sort of sharpish edges on the sort of edges of the cut piece. So one thing we're going to start with is we are going to start by beveling the edges of our pieces. And beveling our edges basically means taking this tool, which is literally called an edge beveler, and we're going to kind of take those... I mean, I haven't made any. I could, but I haven't made any. And we're going to take our edge beveler, and we're just going to sort of take some of these harsh edges off the pieces of leather that we've cut. So you just do that, you kind of create an angle here, and then you just go down, And you can see it's taking off a little bit of the leather, just literally right from the edge of the material. So, you know, these little stringy pieces. And what that does is that just gives that corner a little bit of a nicer feel to it, a nicer, you know, well, edge to it. Makes it feel a little nicer against the skin. I mean, you don't have to worry about like it digging in as much in places. Not that these pieces are going to really dig in anywhere, but but it also, you know, it's just a little nice thing you can do to improve the, you know, the look and feel of the end piece. So let's kind of go around the edges on this one. Sometimes the leather doesn't like to sort of get into that edge beveler, especially if it's softer leather. Sometimes your edge beveler is a little bit not as sharp as it used to be, and there's processes for sharpening that. Other times the leather just doesn't want to cooperate because leather has a grain, which is, you know, literally like your skin kind of has a grain. You know how your skin kind of has like a texture to it or a feel to it. Well, you know, of course, leather has that same stuff because leather is skin. So basically, we're just going to do that to all of our pieces to start with. So this part shouldn't take real long. This white leather has a little bit of a habit of being a little bit feistier when it comes to taking edge beveling. So you can see how the edge beveler doesn't quite go through it as cleanly. That's partially from where the leather is coming from. It's partially, you know, it's partially just the type of leather. It's partially that I honestly probably should have sharpened this edge beveler a little bit before I started. But this leather just is kind of a tougher piece to get that edge beveler. There is another tool that once you have done edge beveling, you can use if you really want to sort of round all those edges, and it's called a slicker. We are not going to be using that today. A slicker is really nice if you have if you're stitching multiple pieces of leather together that are the same shape. Sorry, I don't know. Let me know if you're having problems seeing things. This is my first time kind of doing this on stream again, so you know, it's me just kind of improving, doing what I can while I'm here or in this position. So all right. So just a little cleaning up those edges a bit, making them a little bit prettier. You know, that's kind of what we're doing here. My work surface is really just a... Come on, there we go. My work surface is literally just a folding table that I have put my tools on, that I put a cut section, a cutting mat on to help take up that, prevent me from like really scratching up the surface of the table, and also sort of making it easier to see some of the darker colors and some of the darker things. I'm hoping to get a new work table in before too long. I don't know how that's going to go. I'd like to get, you know, sort of a nice wood surfaced table, or like at the very least, you know, get one of those sort of kitchen islands that you can get that have a wood surface on it. Just to give me a little bit more of a workable base. This old table has lasted me many years, but it's definitely got some damage to it. It's got some holes in it from tool mishaps. Hopefully today we will not have any tool mishaps, but you never know. I will say pretty much every tool that I own has tasted my blood at one time or another. So, that's a thing. I've stabbed myself, cut myself, scraped myself, dropped things on myself. You name it, I've probably done it. I would also like to ask, how does the camera look? Yes, I do have that, Raven, and I will be using it for... I have a big chunk of granite that I have... Here, I can actually show it to you. I use it as a weight for when I'm doing stuff where I need a good flat surface. Here. So we have this guy. Literally just a big chunk of concrete. It helps a little bit. It's not, it's just a little extra weight that helps stabilize things, but it's still, my table itself is kind of wobbly, so, I want to get a less wobbly working surface, which I will work on. This granite chunks are useful for also doing certain riveting things where you're fastening rivets and you need a really flat surface to work on. They're also good if I'm doing some hammering, because having a nice hard surface under your hammer helps things a lot. So, yeah. And here you can see this white leather doesn't really like doing the cornering stuff. And yes, you're going to hear some things probably falling as I do this work. My table is normally a mess, and I just kind of stacked up a lot of the stuff out of the way. Come on. That's a little bit better, but I'm going to come back through and just take those edges off a little bit. There we go. That's behaving a little more smoothly. This is the thing about working with leather, is leather likes to misbehave. Leather, you almost never are going to have a really super clean... things are never going to end up like super clean because of the way leather just behaves. It stretches, it moves, it's, you can get really unruly leather. And it's kind of its own thing. And you could get what the leather seller says is the same type of leather multiple times, and it just won't be the same. It just won't. Oh, right. So the type of leather I got, this is what is called a Latigo. This is a finished and painted Latigo leather. So Latigo leather has been treated so that it can take a dye or painted finish in order to be used for cosmetics, belts, decorative pieces, stuff where you're not dyeing the color yourself. In this case, for example, you can see that like the surface, this white surface, basically is a layer on top of the leather. That's because it's basically they take this hide, which is usually bleached, and then they paint this finished layer on top of it. And that's so that they can get very precise colors on it with very consistent finishes. I think leather is actually really solid as something like a watch band. The converse to leather is the good things about leather is, for example, it wears really well, like over time. If you take care of it, if you take care of the leather, it will last you multiple lifetimes. It really can be a high quality material. Leather also really likes human skin and human oil. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that, like, I have people asking me often, okay, how do I condition this? How do I make this, leather look nice, feel nice, and last forever? And usually I just say, unless your leather actually gets, like, physically stained or... ads, okay. Ads. I will hold off a little bit while the ads people get their ads. Back, okay. But what I was saying is that for people who ask, like, how do I condition my leather? How do I know... What do I need to do to make my leather soft and supple and last forever? And my answer is usually, unless it gets, like, physically stained, all you really have to do is use it and fondle it. So I'm not going to be edge beveling this edge right here because I'm going to be attaching a strap to it and it's going to be stitched together. And we kind of don't want that join line to be quite as visible. And when you edge bevel both sides, or when you edge bevel a join, you can see it a little more clearly. So I'm not going to edge bevel this edge right here because I'm going to want to put it up against another piece of leather later. Yes, cuddle the leather. Cuddle the leather. Fondle your leather. Show your leather that you love it. That is different than if your leather gets stained. If your leather gets stained, you can clean it. Like, there are definitely good spot cleaners out there for leather that are really good at that job. But afterwards, after you've done that spot cleaning, you need to go back and show your leather that love again, because it's going to drain the oil. It's going to drain the softness out of it. And so you need to go through and just go back to loving on that leather. Because that's always what you want to do. You want to love on your leather. I don't remember where I started, so I guess I'm just going to keep going around until I find a spot that I know I've done before. Now you'll notice some places I'm not really taking off any material. It's just kind of pushing it down or smoothing it down, and that's fine as well. The edge beveler is literally just there to take the harsh edge off, so if it can do that without cutting it, that's fine too. I will kind of warn you, there are going to be some boring sections of this, like when there's going to be some stitching, and the stitching is really just kind of watching me push needles through holes. So you'll see me, get a section of me just sort of sitting here with needle and sinew, because I use artificial sinew. And you'll see me just kind of working the needles through the holes. Hey, I am a cat. I will never refuse head scritches. Okay. So, having done the edging, we are done edging our leather. Put that aside for now. So we are done edging our leather. Time to basically punch all of the holes we're gonna need for assembling this. Let me clear off some of this junk out of the way. All this cut section. Toss that aside. Okay, so let me pull out my pattern. So this is our pattern. This has the holes we're going to punch, where we're going to punch them, etc., etc. So let's lay that out. And this is our marking awl, AWL. You can just use it. I'm going to use it. I'm just going to mark out all these holes. We're just basically putting little marks in our leather to know where we need to punch holes for the rivets we're going to eventually need to put this together. We want to match this up as much as we can. It's okay if there's a little bit here and there that's kind of off. Leather moves and flexes, and that's fine. Like you want it to, but it does mean that it gives you a little play or a little, the ability to kind of work your way around. Yes. So I do have white, what are called gel pens that I can also use to mark these. But I found that the white gel pens sometimes don't, how do I put this? They don't show up on certain kinds of leather, or they won't write onto certain kinds of leather well. So I've instead moved to the awl. I've moved to doing this on almost everything, unless the leather is very soft and won't take a mark. I'm also going to mark out a few stitching points on this back edge. We're just going to, for now, we're just going to push this in. We're not going to punch it through, and I'll show you why in a little bit. We're just going to put our marks there. Those are going to be the stitching marks for when we join the leather. To where we're going to join a couple pieces of leather together. So I'm going to put those in there, and then I'm going to go through and grab my hole puncher. Oops. So I use, for a lot of my punching, I use a rotary punch, especially if it's for holes that are near the edges of the material I'm trying to punch. A lot of people go, well, why don't you use a hammer and round punch? And I do have a hammer and round punch, but I also have bad wrists, and so punching a lot of holes with a hammer and round punch really is tough on my wrists over if I'm doing a lot of hole punches. So I use this rotary punch when I'm just trying to do, for most of my punches when I'm doing a lot of them, they're right near the edge of the material, things like that. And as you can see, it just goes through nice and easy. You can hear it ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. I'm going to punch all of these holes. Yeah, that's that there. If I'm punching a whole ton of holes, even one of these rotary punches can get tiring over time. But bad wrist, 2-inch Beat Saber. My bad wrists were from well before Beat Saber, but yeah, it doesn't help. I will say that much. It certainly doesn't help. And especially after doing the week of streams I've been doing, and doing 3 Beat Saber streams, my wrists are not entirely happy with me right this moment. I will say that much. So, you know, even the amount of punching we're doing here is probably going to be enough for me for, you know, for a couple days at least. Okay, so there's our holes punched in the first one. We have the stitching holes marked out, which we will drill out a little bit later. Yes, I would agree that the hammer and punch can be faster. It can be, if you have all your holes marked out and you can get to them in rapid fire, then I would agree that the hammer and punch can be faster. Although there are definitely some things where I've kind of gotten in the rhythm of it so much that I can whip it out a lot faster without too many problems. Like, I do a lot of collars and chokers that are just like the same 4 to 8 punches every time, and I can get through those really quickly without much in the way of problems. And those I can just whip through those without taking too long, regardless of what method I use to punch the holes. The interesting thing you'll see about this, and this is true for leatherworking in general, is you do all of this hole punching and you do all of this all the stitching markings and that kind of stuff, and it seems like it's taking forever, and then you start assembling, and the assembly is like, oh, well, that was fast. You know, like, you do the assembly, and the assembly takes no time at all. Do I make my own patterns? Short answer, yes and no. I have difficulties translating 3D images to a flat pattern. So very often, so for complex patterns like masks and things like that, I often will try and find a pattern I can buy, and then I will modify it often, and then I will modify it to fit my needs. Whereas other things like collars and things that are sort of more simple geometric shapes, those I can usually handle well enough on my own. So some patterns I make, some patterns I buy. It really just depends. I would love to be able to work with sort of a talented pattern maker that can make all the things I want to make. Because, for example, my quest, I have a very long-standing quest. And my long-standing quest is I want to have a cat mask. I want to have a kitty mask made for me that actually fits the design I want and is more of a wildcat pattern than those sort of cheesy costume cat patterns you see where it's like, it's just little cat ears on top of a mask. And I don't want that. I want a leopard pattern. I want a kitty pattern, a cat pattern that fits me. And it's really hard to find that, honestly. Okay, so piece number 2, down. Piece number 3. you'll notice this piece has stitching lines. I use my own stitching lines, but I will use the stitching markers here to mark off the start and the end of the stitching line. So we're going to punch the holes. We're going to punch these holes here. We're going to mark these holes here. So we're going to mark those holes there. And we are also going to mark the starting hole and the ending hole for our stitching lines. So starting hole, ending hole. So we have marked all of the holes we need to punch, and we've marked the start point and the end point for our stitch lines. Did I forget a hole? I did forget a hole. We also need one more right there. Okay. Yeah, I get that, Raven. Yep. Patterns are a thing, and some people are going to be good at some of the aspects of it, and some people are going to be good at other aspects of it. Let's punch. Punch and punch. Punchy, punchy, punchy. All right. One, two, three, four, and 5. Also, pardon me if I don't, let me know if I suddenly, pull things off camera and you can't see them. As I said, I'm kind of doing my best at this. Yeah, I've actually thought about that, Raven. I've thought about making a fursuit myself. Short answer is I still potentially want to do it. Longer answer is, again, it's a ton of work, and let's be frank, working with fake fur is extremely difficult and messy. So it is something I want to try. I would have to buy a pattern to make it work. Because again, I'm going to be shit at making my own pattern. But I could probably make the body pattern, but for the head mold, the paws, and the feet, I would need to buy a pattern probably. All right, so now we are going to mark out where the stitch lines need to go. And again, I'm gonna actually pull a mallet. Where did my mallet go? There's my mallet. Pardon the sounds of things crashing to the floor. I'm just gonna give it a little tap. Again, we're not looking to punch through, we're looking to mark. And we also want to make sure that the marks are equal on both sides, so we're going to just go back and forth, using the last hole as the previous marking point, so we can keep it evenly spaced. And get here near towards the bottom. That might be, so we're going to switch to the double prong so we can get near the bottom, do a little bit more precise punches or marks. The entire purpose of this is to make sure that it is even on both sides, because we really want to, because this will make a big difference when we're stitching things together. Do they have to be even on both sides? Not strictly, but, you know, it's obviously a little more professional if you're able to get them even on both sides. Alright, so that one is fully marked. We are going to come back later, and I'm going to make those a little bit clearer so I can see them a little bit better for when I come back. A couple little holes here and there I just want to make a little clearer. Told you were going to hear things crashing. There, just make those a little clearer for when we come back to those. All right, next ones. Here, pattern, pattern, pattern. Here, pattern, pattern, pattern. Oh, hey. Nope, there it is. I was going to say, I think I left the other parts of the pattern in the other room, but apparently I do have them here. Maybe a silly question, but what time zone are you in? Oh, I'm in PST, Pacific Standard Time, PDT, Pacific Daylight Time, I don't know specifically, but I am on the west coast of the United States, for your reference. So I'm about 9 hours behind you guys, is where I am. You have more holes, more holes, more holes, more holes, more holes. I generally don't do this center line right here. There's no need for them. They are to help whoever's wearing the mask breathe a little bit, and so their glasses or whatever don't get fogged up. But those two outer lines of holes are usually just fine for that. And again, we need to mark the stitching lines. Okay. Okay. All right. So let us punch some more holes. As you can see, lots of hole punching going on. There's going to be more later, but I like to get... So my process for doing one of these pup hoods is I like to get all of the main sections of the pup hood done first. And then I will go back and I will... I'm going for larger holes now for the breathing holes, so they're a little bit... They have a little more ventilation. So what I like to do is I like to do the main section of the pup hood, and then I'll go back and do all the ventilation, do all the strapping and stuff along the back, just to make it it just turns out easier to me. So, and the straps are pretty sort of independent. You don't really need to do them at the original first part of the pattern. You know, some people do, some people don't. I just kind of do things as I need them, as I get to them. I don't know if that's a bad habit or a good habit, but, well, you know, we let it go with whatever we can. Okay, and then here's the other reason why we needed to keep the hole punches needed, is because we need to count these, because this piece is going to be attached to this piece, is going to be stitched to this piece, which means you want the holes going this direction to match the number of holes going this direction. And yes, this will seem a little counterintuitive, that this is a straight line and this is a curved line, but you'll see how it comes together when we get to that stitching part of things. You may ask, are there any holes to punch into those? No, those do not require any holes to punch. We will be gluing those to the piece a little bit later. They are mostly just an accent piece. They're there to help distinguish the colors and and to cover up some of the rivets and stuff. Okay, so here's where I'm going to count. I'm literally going to count the number of punches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we want 20 punches. Hey, funny enough, this is a 4-slot punch, which means we can do math. Yes, take some pain meds, take care of yourself, Raven. I appreciate that. So we are looking for 20 holes down the side of this thing. So there's 4. Now, since we're overlapping by 1 punch, this isn't 4 more, it's 3 more. 7. Sorry, I need to do it on the other side as well. 4. 7. 10. 10. 13. 13. 16. 16. 19. 19, and then that last hole will be 20. So we have done our math right, and yes, there's going to be a little bit of more of a gap at the front of those for their first 2 stitch holes, but that's not going to be a big problem. We're going to put that away for now. Here's where we are going to need to bring out another tool of mine. So you may ask, why didn't I use a hammer and to punch those chisels, those hole punches, all the way through the leather? Why? Because it takes a lot of pounding, it's a lot of noise, and I don't like doing that. Instead, what we are going to do is we're going to take a scrap piece of leather, put it underneath each piece, and then I am going to use a Dremel tool with basically the smallest needle, with a drill bit that fits my needles, and I'm going to just drill through all the holes. Let me rearrange all this stuff and pull this out here. So this is a Dremel tool. For those who don't know, I think Dremel is the actual name. It's called a rotary tool, really. I have a whole bunch of different drill bits for it. Forgot to swap out the bit, so we're gonna get the proper bit. Pull that bit. We want one that's reasonably small. That's too small. We want one that's a little bit bigger than that because our needle is going to be a little bit bigger than that. So that should be fine. That one right there should be fine. Yeah, because the only one bigger than that is just, or smaller than that is the tiny drill bit, which we don't want. And now we are going to drill all the stitching holes. This is going to get noisy for a little bit while I I'm not worried about that little hole. It'll get covered up when we do the stitching. I've had many people ask me, how do you really tell when you're getting better? And you know, what indicates when your skill is when you're getting better at something like this? And the answer is, it kind of comes down to learning when you can repair a mistake, cover up a mistake, improve a mistake, or when a mistake is so bad that it is going to ruin your project and it's just better to start over. That's really what it comes down to. Is just knowing, like, is this project worth keeping or giving up on, and how can I fix it if I need to? What I'm doing here is I'm taking a little rough surfaced rubber thing, and it's using this, and it's basically smoothing out these little stitch hole the edges of the stitching hole. You can see it also kind of rubbed out that one little mistake we made. It looks like we're on ads, so I'm going to run and do the other one while we're on ads, so that way you don't have to all listen to a bunch of additional noise. Okay. Okay. Now you can kind of see why I don't punch through all the way with the hammer and with the chisel, with the stitching chisel. It would have been a lot more effort. It would have been very loud and thumpy. And honestly, with the Dremel, it's just kind of like, go through it and you're done. Just really quick, and you can get through them all really quick. Which reminds me, I still need to do this guy. All right. Alright, with that done, we have basically finished with the main portion of the prep work of the mask. Which means we are on to stitching and assembly and all that fun stuff. Which means I need to pull out one of my other very handy tools, which, if you're going to be doing a lot of leather work, is entirely worth the expense. Give me just a moment. I am not sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but I'm going to show it off so you all can at least see it. So even if I have to use it off screen, you know kind of what I'm doing and how I'm using it. So let's pull these aside real quick. Alright. So this guy is a rivet setter. It's not specifically a rivet setter, but it is a basically a lever. It's a lever action device. Pull this, you can see it punches that together. You can buy all sorts of different, attachments for different sizes of rivets, other kinds of fasteners, all that kind of stuff. You can buy them in multiples of different forms. This one is from a company called Tandy. It's basically fine. I did customize mine a little bit by putting a little bit of leather on the end and then taping it over just to give it a little extra padding. But yeah, that is a tool I use pretty much every time I do leather because, again, I hate using hammer and setter to set my rivets. And it is what I'm going to be using to set most of the rivets for this project we're doing today. Let me see if I stand it up. If I stand it up, yeah, you can't see anything. So I think what I'm going to do for this part is, for the parts where I need to rivet things with the stand riveter, I will pull it over to the side, I will do my rivets, and then I will show you the results of whatever I riveted. It's probably just easier in the long run, and that way, you know, it's not showing up in the middle of your screen, it's not just blatantly obvious. Alright, what I pulled over here are my rivet bins. This is about 5,000 rivets. If I am lucky, 5,000 rivets will last me most of this year. Not all of this year, but most of this year. This many rivets is may seem excessive, but I do a lot of things that require riveting. Alright, now I just need to figure out, am I doing that in or out? I think I'm doing that in. Yeah, I'm doing that in. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling the nose. This is the nose. This is going to be the nose. I'm going to pull these in and rivet them under like that. So you know what I'm doing. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Grums. I appreciate that. You'll be surprised at how fast, like, everything comes together. Even just doing the 2 sections we're doing right now, once we get those done, it'll be like, wow, that really starts to look like a pup. So, there's our nose. I riveted underneath like that. Welcome back, Dragon's Crochet and Raven. Well, thank you, Grums. I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time, so of course, you know, I do have some of my techniques down. So we have the nose there. Raven, what you did miss is I marked all of the stitching holes that we're going to use, and then I used a rotary tool or Dremel tool to punch them. Because rather than taking a hammer to that chisel and having to pound through the leather with each set of stitches, with the Dremel tool, it's just you just bzz, 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 and you just punch the holes, and it's nice and simple. The next step we're going to do, and this is the part that's going to be the more time-intensive part, is we are going to be attaching this piece to this piece. And that's going to require us to first attach a rivet to the nose and center the nose, and then we're going to stitch the edges of these together. And you'll go, well, but Prof, that's a curve versus a straight. Trust me, it'll work. The other thing I showed Raven is I showed my. I'll show it again. This is my riveting press. If you do a lot of riveting, get one of these. It'll save you, again, with a hammer and anvil. It'll save you an incredible amount of work in the long run. If you do a lot of those, if you do a lot of it, you can get attachments for it that allow you to do all sorts of different fastenings, not just rivets. And yeah, it's saved me an incredible amount of work in the long run. Okay, so we riveted that to that. That is going to hold it in place while we do the stitching part. I will admit, stitching is the kind of the thing I like least about leatherwork, especially hand stitching. Hand stitching is a massive pain in the ass. It really is, especially depending on what kind of thread and material you use. Let me see what needles I have today. I want to use today. So I'm going to use these two needles. We are going to use a type of stitch that is sometimes called a saddle stitch. And I will explain what that is as when we do it. We are going to use the type of material I use, especially when stitching heavier leathers like this together, is this stuff. This stuff is artificial sinew. This is black artificial sinew. I bought this roll, I want to say 8 or 9 years ago, and look how much is still left. You buy one roll of this artificial sinew, and it will last you an exceptionally long time. So, first rule of this is always pull out more than you think you'll need. Why? Because this stuff is cheap, and if you run out in the middle, it makes a hell of a lot. It's a lot harder to continue a stitch than it is to cut a little too much, and have to deal with that. Next, we are going to take this and push it through the hole. And to help fasten this a little bit, I'm going to take the needle and basically push it back through the saddle stitch, or through the stitching, the sinew, and pull it through like that. And what that does is that just creates a little bit of tension, so the stitching sinew doesn't automatically pull through as you're doing this. Because there's going to be a fair bit of friction when you're doing this, and you're going to see how messed up this sinew gets. You're going to see how messed up the needles get. You're going to see how much messed up this whole thing gets. And our goal is to kind of just prevent that as much as possible. But, you do what you can. And we're going to do this again. We're going to take the needle and push it through the sinew. And pull that down, and then we have our two ends. Sewing on crochet and or knitted pieces sucks too, but yeah. Well, so it's just a different kind of difficult, honestly, but it will tell you something that I'm probably going to have to use a pair of pliers at some point to pull the needles through, because of how much the leather and the sinew likes to fight you. You can also buy hand covers that let you sort of use the palm of your hand to help push your needle through. I haven't made one of those yet. I haven't really felt the need for them, but some people really do. Okay. So we're going to start this by setting up our initial stitching location, and I like to start at the front and go towards the back. We're going to push this needle through here, and push this needle through here. I'll do my best to make sure you all can see what I'm doing, but at this point I'm going to be getting into the stitching rhythm, and sometimes that means I'm going to be pulling stuff out of view. And I'm going to try not to, but now what I'm doing here is I'm trying to even out the thread as much as I can. I'm trying to even out so I have as much on both ends as I can. Yeah, it's they're so different. The ways of stitching these things are so, they're just, they're really different skills. Now for these, this is what I consider the setting stitch. What I'm doing is I'm getting that first stitch down to help measure off my thread and get that sort of first step locked down. Now in a true saddle stitch, you are supposed to tie a knot. You're supposed to twist the needles as you pull them through the leather. Oh look, this is already doing a thing. That's fine. To create kind of a knot in the middle. I don't do that. Why don't I do that? Well, because it's honestly 9 times out of 10, it's really not needed. There's enough tension there. It's going to hold together. It's, this isn't getting put through as much rough use as some things that are with different kinds of thread. So I'm not exceptionally worried about the thread coming loose. Now that we've got that set stitch in, I'm basically just going to go through one stitch. Some people do one at a time. I've found that you can usually go through kind of 2 stitches at a time, and it's fine. So I'll go back and forth real quick and kind of do 2 stitches. Come back with my other thread and do my 2 stitches. And go through here. And then I'll snug it down. I find, I personally find that is a pretty reasonably efficient way of doing it. Doing 1 stitch at a time is certainly valid. But if you do more than 2 stitches at a time, the thread really starts fighting you and going through the leather. So that becomes a challenge. What's also going to become a challenge when I do this stitch is as I take up the curve, as I go through the curve, it's going to want to fight me more because it's being pulled in a direction it kind of doesn't want to go. So you'll see that happen especially as I get towards that curve in the middle of the leather. You did not actually, Grums. Not Grums, Raven. I did not see you. You'd never sent me that picture. I would love to see it. I love seeing these kinds of things. Seeing other people do their leather work is a lot of fun, and it gives you ideas, and it gives you, inspiration to do stuff, to do more stuff. And I keep catching the other side of the leather as I go, but that's just a hazard of this type of stitching. And I'm going to try and get through this as fast as I can, because honestly, this is the most time-consuming part of this particular project. So, oh look, we're already an hour and a half in. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Once I get past this section, this stitching part, the rest of this is going to come together super quickly. You'll be amazed at how quickly the rest of this comes together. Setting all, assembling all the rivets and stuff takes almost no time at all, really. It is definitely a case of all the prep work, none of the production work. Now, the other thing you'll notice I'm doing on these stitches when I'm doing this curve is I'm kind of punching it through one layer, bending it out, and then punching through the other layer, and that's fine too, because what you are going to pull it all together at the end, so it's fine. So even though it's kind of separated, I'm going to, when I cinch it down, it actually is pulling through pretty well. And again, I'm trying to keep this all into view for all of you, so you can have a good look at what I'm doing. But this is the dull part. This is the part where you're just like, oh, like I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the stitching part over and over and over again. That's just kind of part of leatherworking. Leatherworking is a fair bit of, just routine stuff, routine movements. Just like almost every kind of work, you just got to do some of the routine stuff. Oops. Let that one pull through too much. And let that one go through the wrong way. Almost dropped a stitch there. So, that said, if I continue to do this leather stuff, which it seems, if you're interested, I'm certainly happy to do more leather streams, now that I'm kind of getting the idea down of how it should work. I would love... Also, the music is gone. Yep, YouTube decided to pause things on me. There we go. Should be going again. YouTube went, hey, are you paying attention to me? Are you paying attention to me? Yeah. I mean, if I, continue doing these kinds of streams, what would you all like to see? What would you all like to have me make for you? Keep in mind, I am a kinky maker, so a lot of the stuff I do is, in fact, kink-oriented. I am not ashamed of that. I am not at all going to hide that fact. Nothing I will do will be graphic, so, you're not going to see me do anything particularly... You're not going to see me make a 10-inch leather dong here on stream, but, I'm certainly willing to do a lot of things. Chokers, cuffs, arm binders. Sure, I can do a lot of that stuff. A lot of that stuff, I might have to sort of figure out how I do them, because a lot of that stuff is going to involve stitching, and I have a commercial sewing machine that I use for a lot of that stitching. So for a lot of the pieces that I do that require stitching, if they don't require this kind of precision, this sort of very careful, weird angled sort of stitching, then I have a heavy duty stitching machine. Gags! I can do gags and blindfolds. I can do all that stuff. I can show off. I can do, more masks, and I can do more masks. I can do more. I can do like not just kinky masks, but I could do like heavy leather motorcycle style masks. Things like that. I can do, what else can I do? I can show you kind of how I'm integrating 3D printing into some of my work, because I've started using a 3D printer to both make templates and to add components to my work, because 3D printing is really fantastic for that. And see, there's the thread came loose from the thing, so we're gonna put that back through and just go meh. So yeah, there's a lot that I can do. So at Groms, a lot of what I do is not excessively time intensive, but I do a lot of batch stitching and batch sewing. So I'm and batch making. So I'm putting out the materials and I'm putting out the supplies for like a dozen of them at a time, and not just like a couple at a time. And so often there is a case, you kind of, so each individual piece is not that time consuming, but I'll spend most of a day doing the assembly work, because batch making is always going to be more efficient than making one-off pieces over and over and over again. By the way, just so I know, is the mic quality still good? I mean, like, you guys are happy with the mic quality? I'm coming through nice and clear? I have not heard of the butt stitch. What is the butt stitch? Raven, I'd love to hear it. Anything that could potentially make my life easier, I am more than happy to hear about. And so if it's a kind of stitch that makes things a little bit easier for me, yes, please tell me. Okay. We're almost done with one side already. You guys are keeping up with me and doing well. All right. Okay, so now that we are at the end of the stitch, I need to lock it off. So to lock it off, I'm just going to go back through one stitch hole. And this is where, there we go. You use a little leverage to get through, because even just going back through one of your stitch holes often can be a pain in the butt. I will use I do not fight the needle anymore. So if the needle resists me at all, I just use the pliers and pull it through. Now that we have that taken care of, I'm just going to snip those off. You can see we still had a fair bit of thread left, but ask me if I care that we had a bunch of thread left. Nope. I am going to do what's called a surgeon's knot on this side, which is when you do one tie around. And then for the second one, you do one twist, two twists, and tie it down, cinch it down. All right, so that by itself is going to be pretty secure, but I'm going to snip this off. Take a little lighter, and let's see if I can do this in a way that you can see it. I'm going to burn the edges of our thread, just to get that wax a little melted, and then press it into place. I am not worried about this abrading or rubbing against the person, because ads, sorry. I'll show it again because this still has a little piece. I was just sort of lighting I finished my stitch, I tied it off, and now I'm just kind of melting it into place a little bit so it's secure. This knot it leaves a little lump, but it's not going to be a big deal because this part isn't going to be touching the person. So they're not going to feel that lump. All right, now we move on to the other side, and we're going to do the exact same thing, just a lot more stitching with our needle and thread here. Let me grab some more sinew. Again, we need to secure our thread. Secure our sinew, I should say, our artificial sinew. No, we want to put that. Behave. Sinew, behave. All right. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yes, Cry Little Sister. Yes, that is a cover from Cry. That is a cover of Cry Little Sister. I think it's a pretty solid cover. I mean, very few things will beat the original. I'm not sure I've heard a version of it that beats the original, but I certainly have heard some very good covers of it. So I'm not going to complain too much. And we will come through here. Oh, do not get caught in the loop of the previous stitch. That can happen, and when it does, it is highly annoying. Yes, absolutely, I agree. Like, the original of this song is just amazing. I've heard some very good covers, but they are not the originals. Okay, we're going to keep moving on this. Let's see. how quickly I can get this stitched through. Preferably without injuring myself by sticking myself with a needle, because that has happened more than a few times. I think anyone who stitches can relate to the idea of you getting caught with your own needles a lot. I think that's a relatable thing. Like if it's one thing, if you kind of have a finger there to note when the needle tip is coming through, it's another when like you're pushing through and all of a sudden you get stabbed in the palm, which I have done many times. The worst is when you accidentally stick yourself under your fingernails. Head pats for Raven. Well, I don't have the animation to head pat you, Raven. But good for you for getting back into the streams. Oh, I suppose head pats. Head pats. Head pat. Patty pat. Head pat. Thanks, for being here, and take your, be good to yourself and have you doing the, progressing with your leather work and getting better and taking care of yourself, because everyone deserves head pats. Head pats. Pat. I mean, the problem is I only have one camera. So like I can't have the full body animation. I can't really do the full body animations because I only have one camera. And the camera has to show, has to be on the leather work. I honestly hadn't thought about doing head pats from this angle. Maybe I should have disabled them. And you know what? Just remember, smacking people in the face is perfectly fine with consent. Consent in everything you do, consent in everything you do it with. That is how we do everything, with consent. Oh! Do I? Give me just one moment. I'll be right back. I think. Okay, so what I was looking for, which I did not find, is I have a little tiger plushie that I got ages and ages and ages ago. And since I couldn't find him within 10 seconds, it wasn't worth getting for the remainder of the stream. But I'll have him for the next time I do one of these streams. I promise you. I don't even remember what his name was. It's been so long since I've seen him. For basically when I was first both getting into the kink scene and being more of a furry in the kink scene, he was kind of both a reassurance thing and a attention grabbing thing. So it was like, because everyone likes a cute plushie, right? So, you know, I was trying to attract attention and get people to play with me. And so I thought, you know what would get people to play with me? Say hi to me? A cute plushy tiger. So I got a cute plushy tiger. Plus I'm also I'm a cat person. So of course I would have a cute plushy tiger cat. And it worked for some, you know, for some measure of success. It definitely, you know, got conversation. It was a good conversation starter, I would say. Got a lot of cow plushies. Well, cows are nice and soft and all that fun stuff. Gotta remind myself to stay in camera view. When I'm stitching, I'm used to like pulling the needle in kind of close to me, so I need to remind myself that when I'm doing this here, I need to be more in view. Oh, oops. Nope, not that one. That one. That one. That one. That one. So are you saying you shouldn't be the gaming raven? You should be the gaming cow? Are you a cow person? Or do you just like the cows? Both are valid answers. You're a cow raven cat. Okay. That works for me. Whatever works for you. So you basically incarnate the second verse of that song, Beep Beep, I'm a Sheep, where they go, meow meow, I'm a cow, meow meow, I'm a cow. Meow meow, I'm a cow, meow meow, I'm a cow. My persona has always been some variation of a cat. It's evolved over the years, definitely. It's always been something cat related. my most recent revelation was when I, found out that, like, I am, that there is technically no such thing as a Black Panther. That was kind of an interesting revelation for me. It's like, oh, like, this is a thing that technically doesn't exist. Because then you're talking about a category of cat and not the actual cat itself. You used to have ideas for a cat persona, but you need a new one. I mean, you should make whatever's comfortable for you, really. I'm sure Groms would be really good at fleshing it out for you. Because from what I've seen of Grom's work, they're really good at that. Okay, we're going to get that a good cinching. Oh, it looks like a stitch got kind of loose back there, so we're going to... pull that tighter, and hopefully we can get this stitch pulled through. Okay, so we have one loose stitch. And it's not pulling, no matter how much I'm pulling, it's not pulling that stitch through. So the solution is we're going to shrink it with a little bit of heat. It is not a structural stitch, so to speak. And I don't want to go back and redo it. So I'm just going to melt it down and call it good. Melt it into place. That can happen sometimes. Looks like I didn't pull securely on one of the stitches. That is the other advantage to using this kind of synthetic sinew, is you can do little things like that, little fixes like that, and it's usually just fine. This side is a little bit easier because it's already because I've done the other side already. It's kind of already pulling in the direction I want it to go. But it's still, it's a challenge. The needle sometimes doesn't want to behave real well. Alright, so got a few stitches left, almost to the end of the major stitching point, and then we will be able to get through to the rest of this really simply. And we're just about 2 hours in, so it's not that bad at all. We're definitely making good time with this. Especially with all of my tangents and stuff. I go on tangents a lot. It's a thing. It's probably one of the reasons why I get... So I've been told I have a very good... Part of the reason why I go by professor is because I've been told I have a very good lecturer mode. Like, I'm very good at, doing instructional stuff in a way that is somewhat engaging. It's part of the reason I got reason I got the nickname I did, and why I changed my names all to this name. I hope I'm at least entertaining enough to keep people's attention for the duration of things. But yeah, I tend to do tangents, and I tend to do, let my mind wander to things that are just kind of vaguely related. You're watching every stitch. Yeah, but you already, you're a little biased, Raven, at this point. I appreciate it, but, but we are almost done. These are the last couple stitches. At least for this section. Alright, great. So now I just need to push this through. Cut this off. And put the needles aside for now. We are going to need those again a bit later. But for now, we're pretty much where we need to be with them. So I'm going to put those aside. Tie off our stitch here. With another surgeon's knot. And then we will melt that off again. Look, fire, fire. Hi, and see how it all came together? It forms this wonderful little curved jawline. See how even though this was straight and this one was straight and this one was curved, it came together and it formed this wonderful little jawline. And now we have the front piece of a muzzle. I was actually thinking of at some point maybe making the top a little bit longer and like selling just the front muzzle piece for people who just wanted a little muzzle. But I'm not sure about that yet. All right, so the next part we are doing is we have to attach this piece to this piece. Now, one thing you always have to ask yourself is how are you going to layer your pieces? In other words, they are not going to be matched up like next to each other like this. One either has to go above or below the other. And generally it's considered appropriate to the design to follow the same scale or pattern the entire way through. So for example, see how these pieces are on top of this white piece. That tells me that it will look better if I put the white piece on top of the next piece, because it keeps that sort of cascade. It keeps that layering look, and it will look better to your customers, and it'll look better as a final product to keep that same directionality. We are on the point though that where I need to set these rivets, which means I can't do that quite on screen because again, it's it would take up the entirety of the of the screen to do so, but I will do each set of riveting, and then I will show you the progress on after each step of riveting. But we're basically going to match those up to there and, you know, go from there. So we're going to put the rivets in here. And mush them up, mush them in so they fit through that hole there. And that hole there. And then I'm going to set those two in, I'm going to set those two, and we will and I'll show you how that turns out. Okay, so now we have those two set. I'm going to, just to save us a little time, I'm going to go and set those and show you the results. We're going to do that by placing the rivets and I will say this is another time when having a rivet setter like I have is very helpful, because it helps keep the rivets moving in a straight line so they don't slide. If you've ever set rivets with a hammer and anvil, you know that rivets will like shift off to the side when you hit them, and that can be, you know, very, very irritating to say the least. Dancing to get your steps in before midnight. My first 20K so far this year. That's fantastic. That's great. Yay, Groms. And you know what? If you need to call it a night, if you need to leave early, don't feel bad. If you need to take care of yourself, get food, you know, whatever. Do not feel bad about leaving me. Like, this is entirely a, you know, you're here to enjoy yourself. You're here to maybe learn something. But you're here to be here at your convenience. So, you know, don't worry about it if you miss some things. This is a VOD that I'm very likely going to, if I can, I'm going to put it up on, I might put this, I'm going to try and put this VOD up on YouTube. I'll probably highlight the VOD. I will probably keep the VOD on Twitch for a little while, because Twitch will hold a VOD for, you know, some time. Alright, let's punch these in. You can probably hear it rattle through my table every time I hit the machine. I do have a YouTube channel. It has nothing on it yet. I will be, when I get everything set up, I will be linking things. It is, I should say, it exists, there's no videos on it yet. I'm going to put videos on it, but I don't have any on there yet. Okay, so here we have the front of the muzzle secured to the next piece. You can kind of see how it's coming together, right? So, okay. So our next piece is this guy. You can see it kind of lines up there. We are going to... More riveting. Yes. I know, this whole process is just rivets on rivets on rivets. It's kind of how it goes. Again, I'm just going to kind of speed through this part just so you get the chance to... oh, we have ads. So, I know not everybody, especially those who are subs, don't get ads, but that just means I will place some of the rivets while the ads are going, just so you're not really missing much. Okay. And set all of the rivets in place. Oops, don't let go of that yet, Mr. Rivet. I will admit, making sure you all have a good camera angle of all this is kind of an interesting experiment. This is an interesting experience. I think I like it though. You know, as I was saying, you know, if you're an ADHD sufferer like me, there's a concept called body doubling. And body doubling is where you just have someone around, and just the fact that you have someone around will keep you sort of on task. They don't even have to be doing the task with you. Just the fact that you are there will help keep you on task. And so, in a way, you know, you being Chet, being here for me, you know, kind of like body doubling me. It's a way of keeping me on task, keeping me going. That's very helpful. Dang it. That can happen sometimes. So yeah, like, doing this is definitely, you know, it's kind of helping me in a way. It's very much helping me in a way to, you know, keep me interested and keep me involved and keep me moving. So, yeah, because one of my biggest things is... Yep, exactly, Groms. Yep. It has nothing, and they don't even have to be doing what you're doing. They don't even have to be doing something with you. Just having them there is all you need. So normally when I'm doing a project like this, my ADHD will get the better of me, and I'll do, like, you know, I'll cut everything out, and then I'll let it sit, and then I'll, you know, punch all the holes, and I'll let it sit. And then I'll, you know, do all the stitching, and I'll let it sit. How's he look now? What do you think? How's he look? So he comes together. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the head scritches. Thank you. Thank you, head scritches. I like head scritches. I don't know if it played the animation. I thought I had an animation set for that, but... Alright, so our next step is to do all of the strapping. The head strapping and the... all of the parts that go over the head and secure it in place. That is also why I didn't fold over these ears, because the ears are also going to be a thing that we... that we fold over, and when we do, we're going to include that as part of the strapping. Okay, but here's also why I punched those stitching holes there. We're gonna get the stitching holes back out. We're gonna get the stitching right back out. I need to straighten out this edge. This edge is not straight. I'll take a little bit off. We are now going to put our little stitching. We're going to do a little bit more stitching because we're going to secure this to the head strap over that, to the head strap. So we're basically going to put this right here. Now, if I have in the past tried different things where I used rivets and put them over or under, and it either looks bad or it kind of abrades the person's head, as in they can feel it rub against their forehead and it's uncomfortable. So you guys are actually seeing this first time me doing this method, which is to stitch the two together. It's not really it's not significantly different than what I would do normally. It just, you know, it's the first time I'm doing it. So, luckily this is only a small number of stitches, so it's not that big a deal. We'll pull those guys out again. All right. A lot of the what I'm going to do from this point forward. So I'm going to use a cross stitch, or as some people call it, a cross stitch. And for those who don't know what that is, I will show you why very shortly. Now I hope it's the same term, because it might be a different term. And I might be using the term wrong. Remember, I'm mostly self-trained in doing this. So I do my best to use the appropriate terms, but I cannot guarantee I am using the right terms. But I am, because I am mostly self-trained in all of this. Especially the hand stitching part. I have a friend who does a lot of stitching herself and is a jeweler as well, and taught me a fair bit about machine stitching and using and some jewelry stuff, which I've used in other things, but most of this just came from trying things out and watching YouTube and all that fun stuff. A lot of my learning, a lot of that there learning just came from doing it, really. Okay. I'm going to cap these real quick. I'm going to need them again shortly, but I don't want them in the way while I'm doing this part. Because, I don't want to knock them over, because if you can imagine me trying to pick up 5,000 rivet tops or 5,000 rivet stems off off the floor, that doesn't sound like a great time to me, so let's move those to the side for the moment. Okay, so I'm actually going to start with these upside down, because what I want is to go this way. Yeah, that would not be fun. And this way. And I want to pull those together. And we're gonna have this one come down through there. And this one come down through there. Okay, and then this is kind of our starting stitch point. And why is it called the cross stitch? Well, because you'll see in a minute, because I'm taking the underneath one, going over the top, and then down, and taking the other one, and going up underneath, and going down, and pulling those together, hopefully. And on the top, it doesn't look like a cross, because I deliberately did the top so it wouldn't. But on the underside, you can see it forms a little cross where the stitches go. And that's how they cross over. So, yeah, that is a cross stitch. Or at least that's how I was taught what a cross stitch is, at least. That is indeed a cross stitch. Yep. And you can do the cross stitch either way. You can have the crisscrosses visible or not. That's kind of up to you. I generally prefer to have. It depends. Again, it kind of depends on what I'm doing cosmetically, whether I want the stitches to be, whether I want the crosses to be seen, or whether I want the straights to be seen. In this case, I think I want the straight lines to be. I want this to be more visible. Is what I'm thinking. That's just a lot of that's just going to be cosmetic and personal preference. And I think I shorted one side of my thread. I am fairly certain I shorted one side of my thread. It's a good thing we are only doing... oh yeah, it's a good thing we're only doing a few stitches. Because otherwise I would be in trouble with the number of stitches I have. And again, I'm trying to basically tighten these down as much as I can without completely, so that they stay kind of matched up. I do not know. It is something that is playing on YouTube. YouTube has now apparently decided I need to have Beat Saber music as my soundtrack. All right. Okay. Now I just need to, I'm going to go through these each, I'm going to push through one more time just to secure it, make it extra secure. And then I will tie it off and burn it. And again, this is where I kind of have to work the needle through because it really doesn't want to go through the second time. There we go. Really doesn't want to go through the second time. Also, ew, I'm getting all the residue on my hands. All the residue, all the leather residue and junk and stuff. Leatherworking is kind of a dirty job. Okay, so there's our stitch. I'm going to show you why that matters momentarily. For now, we're going to, again, as usual, pull the needles free. Tie off and burn our stitch. Make sure these needles don't get lost, so they have to go back in a needle container. That's another thing that doing this as, yeah, it does. It makes a huge mess. As I've said to Raven before, one of the reasons that I don't have a cat like a pet is because there's leather crap all over the place. I have no doubt a cat would just eat it and get sick. So, yeah. So I can't afford a pet for those reasons. And for that, as well as I just don't have enough money right now. But tying that off again. And where did I put my lighter? There it is. So one thing that also doing this for the show, for you guys, is helping me with, is it's helping me keep things kind of in order. Like, as in, I'm not just randomly letting tools strew all over the place and, you know, and get lost. You guys are making me, that one got a little hot, are making me be tidy, at least a little bit. All right, so that's the head strap. Now, I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. Okay. This is Harold. He's a little taped up at the moment, but Harold is a 3D printed bust that I made that is basically 1-to-1 scale with a person. As you can imagine, Harold is very helpful when I need to do fitting. I printed Harold in 6 parts, and then glued him together. He is not a fantastic printed model, but he is very helpful for what he does. What he's going to let me do is not have to have precise measurements for this back strap. So instead, I can mark approximately how long I need this back neck strap to be and cut it off without needing precise measurements. Should have used Harold for head pats. Now, wow, lost my train of thought there for a second. Before I had Harold, I would do this on myself. So every single time I did one of these, I would take my glasses off, put on the mask, do the strap behind my back, behind my head, use like my fingernail or something to mark where the leather needs to be cut, and then take it off and do that. But because we have Harold, we don't need to do that. What we can do is basically just go, oh, we want it to go roughly to the back of the neck, so we're going to have it cut off right about there. So now we have our back piece. We're going to now pretty this up a little bit. We're going to pretty this up by not you. So I got one of these. I got these from Tandy, but I'm sure you can find other places that sell them. It has a variety of half circles or radii, depending on what size your strap leather is going to be. So I can literally take the 1.5 inch strap round, put it here, mark it, and I can cut my round. Okay, so we've got the round, we've got the edge round. I'm going to take my edge beveler again and just kind of do a little edge beveling around. You may ask, why did we do this? Well, because we are going to use this So does he say only use a knife? Because these aren't really scissors, these are heavy duty shears. So these are meant to cut through leather. They actually have a very specific bevel, and if you look, they have like little tiny serrations which are there for sure, I can do that. I have a few of them. So I have one for, so I have this one which is for like round. I have this one which is for more like belt tips, like belt tip ends. And then I have this one, which has a variety of radii. So it has different millimeter round radii, or different different radii, some round circles, all sorts of, and everything is marked, so you can see the marking tools. They are very, very useful. Now, Raven, you can also, I think, if you have a 3D printer, you can 3D print these if you want to 3D print them. So you might also, so if you have a 3D printer, you could potentially 3D print these on your own. That is entirely, of course, up to you. Where did I put? Oh wait, no, that's one of the things I'm just grab one from here if I still have any. Whoop, okay. Well, that's that. All right. Yes, I will do so. Admittedly, the 3D printed ones, depending on how good your 3D printer are, may not be as precise. That can sometimes be a difficulty. So if you just want to spend the money, sometimes it's worth it to just spend the money. Okay, we are going to use Herald again. Why are we going to use Herald again? Because we now want to mark. We're going to add a second strap to that curve on the back. Why are we going to do that? Because we are going to create what's called a retaining strap. So I usually use, when I do a strap like this, I do half the size of whatever strap I'm going to be making with the retaining strap. Let me really quick cut this end. As you can see at this point, for me, a lot of this at this point is just kind of like doing, I would say improvising, but I would say it's improvising, but it's really the same routine I do every time I do one of these. So I'm not sure I would call it improvising. I just don't have specific measurements that I keep with me for each one of these pieces. So I don't know what you would call that. Okay. I'm going to take that and line that up and do a quick little mark, roughly center. Where did I put my marking awl? Right there. I'm just going to mark that. Okay. And why are we doing this again? As I said, we're going to take this. We're going to take this. We're going to take the two things we just did, pin them together. Nope. Harold is going to be wearing the mask again. And effectively what we want to do is we want to measure up to roughly the top of the skull. So right about there is where we want this. So I'm just going to mark it by marking with my fingernail. And chop off. I mean, it doesn't have to be kinky leather work. You could, I mean, not specifically anyway. This is true. Kinky is fun. Anyway, now we will snag a couple rivets. Why am I snagging rivets? Because rivets are kind of a convenient way to hold a leather strap when you need to place another hole. So you have the strap there. And we want another hole roughly there. And it's okay if your stuff isn't 100% centered. Like, believe me, no one fucking notices if it's just a little bit off-centered. I mean, I do want to make. I would freely. I mean, I would say I would love to make other leather work too. It's definitely. But there's a thing, like. It depends on how you want to make your income. If the problem is the kinky market and the non-kinky market really are two completely different markets. And I have considered about doing both off and on for a very long time. The problem is, if I were to do that, first of all, a lot of the events that I would sell at overlap. So it's like you have to go to one or the other. The other thing is it means I would literally have to keep two completely separate inventories. Because I would need the kinky stuff for my kinky folks and the non-kinky stuff for the other stuff. So, as you can see, what we've done is we've added a strap to the back of this back strap here. Why do we need this? We need this because we are going to be making... Because the straps that are going to hold this whole thing in place are going to be... I'm going to lace them through this in order to hold them in place. So that way it secures them at the back of the head and it makes sure they don't wiggle around too much. So that's why I call this a retaining strap. Okay. Surprisingly enough, we're actually almost done. Like, would you believe that? We're getting close to done. The next part is to make the last straps and the buckles and straps, and then we're basically done. How am I going to do that? Well, not very difficult at all. Flip these over. Right. Where? Ah, there it is. I do have a slot puncher, but for what we're doing, we're only doing a couple straps. It's easier for me to just cut the slots. So I'm just gonna so it's a little bit messy, but honestly, again, on this piece of it, nobody really notices that much of anything. These are what I use for my buckles for these. They're just doubled over roller buckles. Gonna lace that through. Do need my rivets now. I'm going to need a lot of rivets. I'm going to need several rivets at this point. Okay. Okay. Then we need to figure out how long we need it to be, which we will do again by using Harold. But this time he's going to be face down. Face down, Harold. We want to put this sort of just on one side of Harold. Oh, I didn't set one of these rivets. Okay, I will fix that in a moment. Let's do a little bit closer, and we're going to mark it right there. Okay. I missed a set rivet. Yes, I did. And that's for Harold. Headpats for Harold. Headpats for Harold for being such a good model for us, you know, for being here, for helping me with all my letter stuff. So headpats for Harold. Who am I to refuse the request for headpats for Harold, right? All right. Whoops, that was too... I would say that's too big of a hole punch, but it'll be fine. The rivet will be big enough to cover it. It's just... that wasn't my intention to put that big of a hole through it. So this one gets to rotate a little bit. That makes it that makes it good for people so they can place it higher on their neck or lower on their neck depending on how they want. Now we're going to do the same for this side. The difference being is this one has to have 2 holes punched in it because it's going to fit here. And then when this pierce the part of the ear overlaps, we're going to have one piece of one long rivet going through all of the pieces. So let me grab another piece of my leather, and we'll do kind of the same thing. And at this point, this is just like a lot of this is just kind of my experience with knowing how far apart these things should be and how much slack I need to give them, and you know, all that stuff. So this is really just... Now you're also going to see me pull apart the piece because I forgot something. Not the entire piece, but you're going to see me pull apart the strap I just did. Because I forgot something. after I put this one in place, can you guess what I forgot? I'm going to tell you they're on camera right now. What I forgot is on camera right now. Yep. I forgot what are called. They're often called, or sometimes called, belt keepers or strap keepers. They are meant to, so that if you have a longer belt or longer strap, it doesn't flop around. Now, this kind of buckle helps with that somewhat, but you still want to be able to hold it down over that piece there. So, I'm literally just going to pull these apart. If you heard that pop, that was the rivet going. So, by the way, let that be a lesson. A single rivet is... do not depend on a single rivet to secure anything. A single rivet will give way pretty easily. So do not depend on a single rivet for any kind of strength. They are there to be, I won't say cosmetic, but they are there to hold a thing in place. They are not there to take any kind of working load. I said load. Sorry. Anything I make that has to withstand any kind of actual stress, and I'm going to use rivets to secure it, has at least 3 rivets in it. Sometimes more. Oftentimes more. Okay. Come here, Harold. You're gonna be our little measuring stick again, because we're gonna go down over here. Oops. Go up a little bit and pull that in just a little bit, because we don't want it to be entirely touching. That'll work. Okay, so we're gonna go there. Get my rounding template out again. By the way, we're almost done. How does that feel? A good 3 hour, I mean, especially for 3 hours, we're almost done. That's pretty solid. Three hours is a really good pace to go from just cut to pretty much done. Almost done. Okay. Okay. I am going to secure this in this hole for just a moment, just so I can poke the other hole so we can get where this is supposed to go. So just holding it there so I can do that, and I'll pop it off again. And as you can see, it then gives us a little spot for us to punch our other hole. So, there. Now we're going to push one of these through and secure it with, Sorry, this is supposed to go underneath, not on top of. One of these is going underneath. And then we have, I'm going to secure that one. And then we have these guys. And these guys are my extra long rivets. So you can see for comparison, I don't know if you can see that real well. Hey there, Six. Welcome to joining us. Thank you for joining us. So I don't know if you can see the different lengths and stems. See the difference in lengths? This is fine if you're going through either 2 or 3 pieces of leather if they're if they're thinner. This is for anything that's thicker than that. So there you go. Thanks for joining us, 6 Feet Deep. We are getting near the end of a crafting stream where I am putting together a nifty little pup hood. So you're about to see kind of the final result of all this, of what we've been doing today. I hope you're having a good day yourself, and okay, so see how the longer stem sort of goes in there and then folds over to make the ear? So now we have the ear all folded over and looking cute. Thank you, Raven. Now I only have to pop one rivet, not both of them. Hey, thanks for following, Six. I usually am a Beat Saber and miscellaneous game streamer. Today we are doing a special day because of leather streaming, because I've been doing 7 days of streams. I've been having a blast with it, but it is getting near the end of that 7 days, and I've been having a great time with all of it. So thank you for following. I really appreciate that. We're going to be done soon enough that I probably will have time to do a little show and tell if people want some show and tell on some of the other things I make. If people are sticking around for it, as I said, I do have plenty of other things I can show you that I generally make. Okay, so there's ear number 1. Yay for ear number 1. Now for the next piece, now it's a lot easier because we don't have to do any more. You don't have to do any more buckles. We are just making the straps. I do have chokers and cuffs to show. I could show. There are things I can show. Now, do you mean like actual secure cuffs, or do you mean like cool cuffs that are just wearable? Because those are 2 distinctly different things, and I have both, but they are distinctly different things. Okay, so this is going to be strap number 1. Both. I don't really have any just sort of cosmetic wrist cuffs. It's one of those things that I've, played around with. Again, it kind of goes into that, do I really want to keep both kinky and non-kinky things around at the same time? That sort of thing. So it's a little bit of that that's kind of prevented me from doing a lot of just the standard wrist cuff kind of things. So, I hate to say it, that's kind of not where I go anymore. No, we're basically doing the same thing we did on the other side with the straps and the buckles. It's just this time we are doing it the buckle side. This time we are doing it to the straps to the strap side. How long have I been working with leather? Like a dozen years or so now. About 12 years, I would say. I got into it because I got into kink. And I went to like kink stores and stuff like that were selling kink items. And I looked at them and went, "You're charging how much for that?" Well, I could do that. And then I started doing it because, unlike some people who say I could do that and then just never follow up, I am kind of a cheap person. I'm kind of cheap. So when I had the choice of going through and doing the thing, I actually started doing the thing. Come back to us, Harold. We need you again. Okay, so now this time, since we are going over, we want this piece to overlap the buckle and strap piece, which means I usually like to go to about the edge of the ear, so I'm just going to put it right there, and we will cut that there. I started in the same way that a lot of people who get into kinky crafting do, with floggers and hitty things and that kind of stuff, because it seemed kind of what everyone did. Did I? No, it's right here. Because that just seemed like what everyone did. Then I started expanding outwards from that, especially when people started looking at my stuff and saying, "I want to buy that from you." And I was like, but I don't think it's good. I don't like it. It has all these flaws. And people were like, "No, I want to buy this from you." And I made a lot of buts until someone finally put cash in my hand and said, "No, you don't understand. I think what you make is good." Well, that's kind of cool. That's cool, Six. I mean, I'm assuming as long as it doesn't interfere with seatbelts and stuff, that could be really cool. Although it does kind of prevent them from protecting themselves if something does go horribly, horribly wrong. Raven, this is another template that I 3D printed. This is 3/4, this is 1 inch. These are 3/4 inch holes that are marking holes. It's very handy. It's another thing that I just made I could probably send you the STL file for it if I can find it, if you want it. Honestly, the growing commonality of 3D printers has been one of the best things to happen to crafters, like ever. Because it lets you make stuff like this, like patterns and templates and tools, super easily and super conveniently. And that has led to an immense level of convenience for this. Yes, if anything you get out of this, I hope this helps shape you, like, this is worth it, this isn't worth it, this maybe I really need, this I really don't need. And I will say that pretty much what you see me using here today are what I commonly use in almost all of my leather projects. I have a bunch of other tools that get used in more or less to more or less degrees, but this is the core. This is the core of what gets used most of the time. So, a good knife, a good pair of shears, the marking awl, my edge beveler, my rivet setter, especially my rivet setter. Especially my rivet setter. These are all the very useful things that I have found throughout the year, through my years. And as you can see, my workspace is getting more and more messy as I get near the end, because I'm getting near the end and I'm keeping things in less order. One more strap to go, and then we are done. One more strap to go, and then we're done. Is that a 3/4? Yes, it is. I will use it. Okay. Okay. And we need Harold one more time to get one last measurement. Yeah. I am not set up for it today. I probably have enough cable. I could probably string it over and show you my sewing machine and the wreck that is my actual cutting room. But I think today is maybe not the day for that. Nope, no, that side. We are on ads. I will let the ads run and take a sip of water while I Get these last couple things in place. Water. Water is good. Sure, I don't mind sending you a picture. I can give you the brand. To be frank, I wouldn't actually recommend... Now that I know more, I'm not sure I would recommend the sewing machine that I have. What I bought, Raven, was a heavy-duty upholstery sewing machine and flatbed upholstery machine, and then I added a heavier device called a torque wheel from it. Water is fuel, yeah. But I'm not sure, now that I know what I do know about leatherworking, I'm not sure I would call that the best solution anymore. I think I would have, for the money that I had, it was worth it, and it certainly does 90% of what I need it to do. But some of the stuff that I really want to do with it, I can't. Because of the limitations of mostly the flatbed part of it. It is incredibly difficult to do any kind of curved sewing or patterns that have a curve to them with my flatbed sewing machine. A lot of leather sewing machines that you can buy will be like a I don't know how to call them. They just have like a round extension that the we're gonna mark that right there. Or a lot of leather sewing machines will have a detachable bed so that it's easier to do more curved shapes, more things like that. But they are, of course, they are more expensive. So you kind of have to figure out what's going to be worth your time and your money. Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm talking. Yeah. An arm sewing machine or a cylinder sewing machine. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Those guys are. If I had had if I'd had more experience, and if I'd invested a little bit more money, I probably would have sprung for one of those instead. Because, yeah, like, for doing some of these, for some of the stitches, it really would be helpful to have one of those. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with my flatbed sewing machine. It's just, it's kind of limited in some regards. So I would have made a different choice now that I have a little more experience. Let me do a little bit of cleanup because we're basically done. I want to make sure it's taken care of before we get everything completely done. And yes, we're still going to be doing things with these eyebrows. Okay. So I'm going to punch the holes in this strap. Squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. 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 Squeaky, squeaky. I have no idea. I am not paying attention to what is playing on that stream at the moment. So, and for those watching the VOD, of course, they are hopefully hearing nothing at all, so that the VOD doesn't get doesn't get fully muted. All right. So here we have our mostly finished hood. What do y'all think? That is the mostly finished hood. Yeah. Now here is a little extra thing that I personally do when I'm doing these masks, when I'm doing these hoods. If you notice, there's not a huge amount of color distinction here. There's this section of white here and everything else is black, and then you've got all these visible rivets. I am not such a huge fan of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the eyebrows and basically we're going to glue in the eyebrows right there. But the leather is a little bit thick. This leather is a little bit thick. It's a little bit it's a little bit thicky and it's a little bit springy. So we're going to use a technique called skiving to thin this leather down. Now you can get a skiving knife, which is deliberately meant for skiving. But you don't really need one. All you really need is a really sharp knife. A really sharp blade. But because I'm going to be working with a really sharp blade, I'm putting on a cut glove. So all I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to take the blade and hopefully get some... I need to find a place it can bite in is the problem. There we go. So I'm going to take the blade and I'm just going to start taking off material. Not a ton of material. I'm not looking to take off like a whole chunk of it. I'm just trying to thin it down, especially around the edges, because the edges are the part that's going to peel up the most. And I don't want that. So I'm just kind of taking the edges off to start with. Now, this leather is not behaving real well because it doesn't, and this is not the perfect knife for skiving, but yeah, I wish so there's lots of different tools. So let me pull out something else that is a skiving knife, or claims to be anyway. Let me see if I can find it. I don't even know where I put most of them is the problem. Because I use them so seldomly that I don't keep them around that much. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna waste the time to try and find the skiving tools. Sorry. We'll take one last look at a couple places and see if I can find them. Nope, not really. Okay. Well, no skiving knife today. I guess we're just gonna do it with a blade. But yeah, we're just gonna hopefully thin these out a little bit. Not the most efficient tool way of doing this, but I'd rather do this with a relatively sharp tool than I would, or a sharp straight blade than I would with like a badly curved quote unquote proper skiving knife. I actually, for the most part, I really kind of dislike skiving. A lot of times I won't bother. But really do want to thin out the leather on this guy. Or I really want to thin out the leather on this piece. And again, this is why we're using a cut knife. I'm not worried about my blade holding knife getting damaged. I'm worried about my something slipping and accidentally slicing my other hand. Yeah. Luckily, this is thicker leather. So I'm not so worried about it. And skiving the middle is just proving problematic. Well, we'll just take care of the edges for this. Just doing the edges should be fine for now, I think. It means you won't, unfortunately, be able to see the final result because I'm going to be gluing these in place, and when I glue them, I need to clamp them. Which means that they're kind of going to be a little bit obscured by the clamps. So, you know, I will do my best so you can see what's going on, but and then you watch me pull the blade backwards on my pull the blade backwards way too hard and just see me stab myself with my utility knife, right? You know, just to sort of make things perfect, right? Yeah. I can see that. So I'm really not liking this kind of the fuzz at the edges, so I'm just kind of taking care of that with the scissors. One of these days I should invest in a proper skiving knife, but I'll be honest, I don't skive enough for it to be worth it for the most part. So it's kind of a, you know, it'd be a luxury item that I kind of wouldn't make an incredible amount of use of. Well, also, I can understand that a little bit, especially when you're making a commercial product like shoes, where, yeah, exactly. Shoes kind of have to be just the right size. You know, they have to be exactly the size that they're advertising. Okay, so we cleaned up the edges a little bit. Probably could have skived it a bit more, but again, I don't really have a good skiving knife and I didn't want to deal with it. So we're going to put that aside. Yes. Okay, so done with that tool, done with that tool. See me being a good boy, putting away all my stuff. Okay. Now we're back to him. We're ready to glue. How are we going to do this? Well, okay, so the glue I have, this glue in this bottle, is a brand called Fiebings, Fiebings. It is Fiebings Leathercraft Cement. It is a very good glue for bonding leather to leather. It's actually pretty good for bonding leather to anything, but it's especially good at bonding leather to leather. But it does need a little bit of texture. It does need a little support to get in place. Once it's in place, it's fine, but it needs a little support. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the eyebrow and put it in place, figure out where that needs to go, and then I'm just going to scratch this up a little bit. We're not trying to cut through it, we're just making marks. We're going to make marks so the glue has somewhere to go and has somewhere to build, to fit in and stick. We're roughing the surface just a little bit, you know? I'm not putting any pressure. You know, it's a pretty sharp knife, so I don't have to put a lot of pressure, and I'm just kind of getting a little texture to everything there. Okay. Yes, roughing the surface. So roughing your surface is always a good idea whenever you are gluing anything. Whenever you're gluing anything. So now the nice thing about leather is leather, of course, already has one rough side. The flesh side is always going to be kind of rough. So that side is always going to be ready to go. It also means that when you are gluing rough side to rough side, leather can glue really well, like really well, when you're gluing rough side to rough side. Very cool. Sandpaper would be more efficient. I do use sandpaper on some things, Raven. This works for this. Now, as I said, this is Fiebings Leathercraft Cement. As you can see, it looks a lot like Elmer's glue, and it spreads a lot like Elmer's glue too. Like, it definitely is an easy spread material. Now, you do want it to get a little bit tacky before you really start putting things together. And that doesn't take very long. It just takes it takes a minute or so. We're going to rub that all over there and smooth it out. And then we're going to do the same on this stuff. We're going to add a little bit of glue to these guys. And spread it around. Now I will say, this is the part of doing this where my cat side just hates me, because I hate getting my hands sticky. Sticky hands is like, ugh. It's like the worst thing ever. Hate sticky hands. So voluntarily putting glue on my fingers is like mini cat torture. But this is very important for this particular material to bond correctly. So, other glues, or if I was stitching it, I wouldn't worry so much. And in fact, I often use double-sided tape to just hold a piece in place if I'm going to be stitching it down later. But if I'm depending on the glue to hold something, then this is what I do. So, let me re-plug that. All right. Here's another thing I recommend people get. These are bulldog clips. They are very good for holding leather in place. So I can do this. Now this has already gotten tacky, so this is going to hold reasonably well on its own. Enough that I can probably show it off without it popping loose. But you can see I need to kind of smooth everything on and hold it in place. For reference, the glue that I'm using dries in about 2 hours and cures in about 24. So, if you're going to use it for stuff, and you need it to fully cure, you need to wait at least 24 hours. But you can work with it and do other things with it in about 2 hours. Okay. Now, I am going to hold these down. I am going to use the binder clips to hold them in place, but for now, what do you think? Now we have, here is our basically finished pup hood. Now, would you like to see it on Harold or would you like to see it on me? I could certainly show it on Harold, or I could show it on me, so you could kind of see how it is. And I'd still be wearing a mask, so you wouldn't see. It wouldn't be a face reveal. Okay, so I will do that, but this might end up being upside down. We shall see. All right. I am going to lace the straps through the back holder as well. here, you. And this goes through this side. And whoop. And nope, you don't do that. Let me see if I can. Well, so here is me probably upside down. Yep, that's me upside down. There we go. Oop. Hello. Hello. If you are looking for Pup Professor, this is Pup Professor. Hello. How are you? So there you go. That's what the final product basically looks like. Flip you back over and do this so I can get back the view of the. All right. Okay, so, but what I was saying is, since I want to make sure these don't go anywhere while the glue is curing, I'm going to take my Bulldog clips, and I'm just going to go there, and that should hold that in place, just to make sure that they stay where they need to be. The nice thing about Bulldog clips is they do leave a little bit of a mark, but the mark they leave can be excuse the phrasing, rubbed out. So that is how I secure the gluing. Hey, Dragons, that's great. I'm glad that you were able to get your stuff done too. So there we go. I will basically leave this here, the glue to cure. Oops, looks like I need to do a little bit more towards this end. There we go. Yeah, I will leave this clamped overnight to let the glue cure, and just keep it in place better. But otherwise, yeah, that's done. Thank you, Groms. Thank you for staying up and watching with me. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed things. There we go. A little less of my mess, a little bit more of the table. But yeah, I'd planned for this to go 4 hours, and we've done about 3.5. So I can certainly spend the last 30 minutes doing show and tell if people want me to do show and tell and show off some of the other projects, as well as answer any questions people might have. All right, Raven. Good night, Raven. If there's anyone else in stream who'd like to see anything, I mean, as I said, I'm more than happy to show off my stuff. I do this for a living. I'm happy to answer questions. Bye-bye. But otherwise, yeah, no, I'm definitely this was a really fun experience. I'm glad I was able to do it with you all. And we're back on ads. Well, as long as we're on ads, if there are people wandering still in stream, in just one moment I will step away and grab a couple things I can show and tell. Alright, we appear to be back from ads. We've got about a little under 20 minutes. I might cut things a little early, but first I figured I'd show you a few things, other things that I've done. So we're going to pull this guy out. First thing I'm going to show you is... So I do other types of hoods and masks too. In particular, I love doing certain animals. I love doing pony masks, but recently I did this guy. And he's big, and he doesn't show up well on camera, but he is a big old Anubis mask. I don't know if you can see him. He is a big old jackal Anubis mask. He is entirely hand-stitched. Made out of black leather. He's got the perky ears and everything. He goes really great. He goes really great. He's got a big long nose, which I really like. It's a very challenging design to sew, so I really enjoy it. It's all because it all has to be hand stitched. I also do pony hoods for those who want to be a pony. See, we have our lovely little pony hood. She is riveted and stitched. You can see the stitching along here. Lots of all the rivets. Stitching along there. There's plenty of stitching in the back. But then I also use artificial hair to give them a big, long, lustrous mane. Use a similar strapping in the back and rivet the hair in place with glue and all that fun stuff. This guy is also a very challenging thing to do because at the very least the hair tangles in everything. Like everything gets tangled in the hair. And then last thing I will show for today at least, we can come back and do some other things, is someone was asking about cuffs. So these are a pair of the cuffs that I do. Remember when I said about rivets, you shouldn't secure things just with rivets, unless if you only one rivet. So on these ones, The securing part has multiple rivets. It has a locking hasp and slot style, so you can kind of secure them yourself. I'm going to open them up. It's nice and padded here in the middle. I'm a firm believer in not using foam padding because foam will break down and fur will get nasty over time. So I just use some really soft, lovely leather here in the middle to make this style of cuffs. So they were just curious. I thought I would just add these on, tack these on a little bit towards the end of the stream. I hope they look pretty. But I think I feel my voice giving out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say thank you all for coming. For those who've been around for most of the week, thank you for enjoying staying with me during 7 days of streams. I will be back to a more usual schedule, which is 3 to 4 days of streams the rest of this week, starting on Tuesday with another Beat Saber stream. I'll be back doing the Beat Saber stuff, but I definitely need a day of rest, I think, after doing this. I hope you all enjoyed my content today, and I hope you all enjoyed my content for the week. If you have not followed, I hope you do follow. If you are a lurker, we love you. I hope you learned something today. I hope today was better than yesterday. I hope tomorrow is better still. But until I see you again, until we get to spend more time together, which I will absolutely love to do, I will happily do more of these leather crafting streams again if people want me to see me do more leather crafting streams. But until that happens, I will have to say bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for being here with me today again.